that was the key item we covered on last Thursday, was how do we manage our data, how do we manage our entities, and make sure that we're not looping in circles through map bys and through bidirectional versus single or unidirectional or one directional mappings and structures. So those are some of the key elements that we want to look into. If we pull up our, where is my, this thing? Yep, nope, that's not the right one. All right, those are screenshots. That's not what I want. I want a file. Where's Zoom? All right. There we are. There it is. Yeah, it was there somewhere. All right, so what we got here, we have, let's see, our customer entity exists. Yeah, we got that in here. We got a store, our vehicle, and our location entities should all exist by now, right? Last thing we were working on the weekend, we got location in there. We also have the customer to store relationship built in, the vehicle to store relationship, and the location to vehicle relationship now done, which leaves us with one final major item, which is our many-to-many complex, or the one-to-many version of our rental system. Yeah, so a vehicle can have multiple rentals. A customer can also have multiple rentals, which means though through that a vehicle has multiple customers, and through the rental system, a customer has multiple vehicles. So it can be really interesting how this works, but we're going to see how we build that system. What's going to be different about this is that it's going to be debating whether or not how the directions are going to form, and at the same time, we want to make sure we have this item, because in the beginning, we just want to see, at least in your system, we just want to see who rented what. That's in the beginning. But eventually, for you guys, we want to be able to add more data to this. The time of the rental, cost, how many miles potentially, profit margin, any of that kind of data about that rental specifically. Some of you even looked into maybe adding employee data for the on-site placement as an employee was part of the sale, which isn't really how rental places work. But if you were to convert this from a rental system to a car dealership system, which would be similar in a lot of pieces while different, you could then change. Then you could change that. So the rental being a sales item, and even then we could turn this from vehicles to objects or to non-vehicle sales places too. So then we would have multiple sales for a single person in a single cut vehicle. So there's a lot of things you could do for this moving forward, but the main key element there is we want to make sure we can store more data than just the customer ID and the vehicle ID. In our system, that's really the only data we really need. The fact that we have that a developer likes a post, we just need the developer ID and the post ID. However, I'm going to use this as my way of just showcasing how do we create an entity to make that instead of our developer underscore posts table, like we did for the developer to languages and your guys' customer to stores. For customer to stores, you ended up, again, you guys didn't create it, so it's either going to be customer store underscore store or store underscore customer for your table. For our system is I think it was the developer languages database table, or the languages developer. I actually don't know which one it builds, again, because we're letting, what is it? We're letting JPA help manage it. Actually, I think we did actually give it a table. Yeah, we actually named it. So you guys probably named it too. But the normal convention, developer language. I do remember we named it now. In this case, we don't want developer posts. That's not very helpful to us. It doesn't tell us what it is. It's not really informative. And the same thing here, a customer underscore vehicle table, not very informative. And we already know we can't store additional data. So let's get to our project. What we're going to do here first is build that entity. We want to actually create an entity for that middleman that's going to keep track of that information. So new model package. I'll do small L for the package. do model like. Told you stop asking that. Fine, whatever. Go ahead and go at like, or at entity, sorry. And because this is one that's going to contain additional data, not just the two IDs, we're going to create ID number, a actual ID field as well. So ID, value, strategy, generation type, identity. This field is actually going to be more just for SQL, not really for us. We're very rarely going to actually reference this item by the ID. Very rarely. We could utilize it for removing an existing like. If someone liked it, but then they changed their mind, they actually don't like it. We can utilize the ID, of course, to easily find it. But usually in a lot of situations in here, you'll usually search for it by the user ID and the post ID, or the geek ID in this case, geek out ID. We'll usually find it, then delete it. Because we may not always know the ID, because we probably won't even send this data down. This is mostly the field that we will never send down. Really what we want to do, and something I want to see if I'm going to double check for tomorrow, is we want to, whenever we pull this information for either the geek out, instead of getting a list of the users usually, you might want to get a count normally. There's a problem to that though. If we just return a count to our front end, what is something our front end can't do? Or what does our front end not know about the current user in this geek out?
What's that question again?
Yeah.
So if we decide in our system to just send the number of likes for a geek out down to our front end, and there's a user looking at this post, what is something we cannot, that the front end cannot or does not know about the user in this current geek out?
Well, there's no ID or anything connected to like, so we won't know who liked it, right?
And so that means we wouldn't know if we should show that user, oh, you've liked this already. We can't confirm it. And say, oh, you've already liked this. So our thumbs up button, if we decide to use that, would be clear. We couldn't solidize it. So there's still a reason we might need to send down one of two things, either all the IDs of who liked it, or at minimum, have our backend confirm who's viewing this, and then send down whether or not they liked it already, and just check to see if they already like this. So that is something we could do. So there's a couple workarounds for this system to make sure, and again, these are all things you want to consider during your build as you go. Nothing you have to decide right away. Just get something working at first. Screw it, send all the IDs down in the beginning. But knowing later on, if let's say YouTube, for example, what is some of the most liked videos out there? How many likes do they have? I'm sure it's a BTS video. What is it?
Oh, it's
There's likes like up to thousands or like millions.
it's in the millions.
I mean, yeah,
Let's see, hold
I
on.
guess
Where
like
is that?
Gangnam
43
Style, bro.
million, I think, off the top of my
Gangnam
head.
Style was the most liked a while ago. It's no longer that. I think it's a BTS. Last I checked, it was
Yeah.
a BTS video.
I mean,
I
Gangnam
haven't
Style's
seen-
10 years old at this point, Sergio. So,
Ah, man, I'm sure my age. Shit.
I mean,
the
the struggle of time marches on, and my bones
still
become dust.
Despacito?
I am,
Wow.
you know,
Can't be
I mean,
that. Oh, this is
that's
Wikipedia. That's outdated then. How do you find that out? That's the 20th now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scroll all the way down. Yeah.
I don't know what time this is. It still says this. What's the date of this article?
That was October,
Despacito, dude.
I don't know,
Gangnam
is it
Style's
really
on
still
there, though.
Despacito? Oh, I'm
almost
sure
a
it
month
is.
old. That's what. So what did that say? 46 million likes.
This is so sad. Alexa, play Despacito.
Oh wait, I'm doing likes, not views. Right. I forgot about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Blackpink. There's someone I heard about a lot. Billie Eilish. There's BTS video. They have two. There's another one of them. Marshmallow. Okay, that makes sense. Blackpink. Gangnam Style. He's actually still number 8. Wow. There's another one. How many do they have?
A lot.
Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran. Yep. Shape of You. That's not surprising. Oh yeah, they do a lot. Damn. Oh God. Baby Shark, there we go. Dance. Let's see again. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, Despacito probably. Yeah, October.
46, 18.
Yeah, that's last month, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is
Article's
still
almost a
accurate.
month old.
And Despacito. And he's got there's two different types of Despacito. No, that's in read. Never mind. I can't read. Apparently. So yeah, so look at that right there. If we were going to send the ID of every single person that liked it down to the front end, how's our bandwidth doing?
It's dying.
And not only that, now our front end has to scan this 46.18 million entry array to see if that ID exists in that array. How's that, O of N? That is a guaranteed 46.18 million processes, because the only way to know that something does or doesn't exist is to go through the entire array, is to know that it doesn't exist. So best case scenario is O of 1, because the first person there, they're the first person who liked it. Worst case scenario, O of N, to get through every single ID and realize, nope, it's not here, they didn't like it. I have a strange feeling that YouTube is not sending down the entire list of IDs that like the video. What do you think?
Probably
they
not.
They just go through the list of all the videos that you like.
It could do that, but let's say again, for some of you, how many years have you had a YouTube account?
12.
Yeah, gotta be around there. Some, yeah.
I can guarantee some of you have at least liked a couple videos a month, give or take.
Man, my liked playlist is about 200 videos in it.
Okay, maybe not as bad. So that's one way. Mike definitely has one way of simplifying it. But let's think of some of the, what is it, Generation X now or Z? Generation Z. Let's think Gen Z. That YouTube has been their life since, then that's it. And they're the ones that are probably liking things more than, honestly, millennials. We're used to
boomers.
just watching things and moving on. We watch and just let it go. We don't go and then like and comment half the time. At least I know I don't. I don't like as many things as I probably do actually like. So yeah, Mike's solution would work for a lot of us, maybe not for everyone. There are probably people out there that like pretty much every video they watch. And so their list could get pretty massive. Yeah, like what do we have? Like there's billions of hours watched on YouTube a day. And if even half of those people like every video they watched during that time frame, it's a massive, you can develop some massive lists for users. So one of the things, again, so that's a great idea there, Mike, to think of one of the ways to counteract it. Instead of sending down the idea of all who liked it, just compare it against your liked list and see if this is a video that you yourself liked. I can guarantee that's probably going to be smaller. So at least in most scenarios, not guaranteed, but it is definitely most likely that yes, anybody watching Despacito has less than 46 million likes videos that they've liked, most likely. I wonder how long it would take to watch 46 million videos of like 5 seconds long. Not easy. What was the answer to that? So that's one way we could save some of our data, by switching how we send the data down. Another thing we could do is just let the backend do it, and especially let our SQL system do it. We could create a system that says, just create a simple method in our repository that just checks the database and say, hey, does this entry exist? Does this user in this video have a like? True or false? If we find one record, we just send down to our front end, true. SQL is much better at searching through data than arrays, than Java and JavaScript as searching through an array or searching through a collection. For Java to search through something, it actually has to scan that item because it doesn't know, because it's constantly changing. The data is not persistent. SQL, on the other hand, the data there is persistent, and so it indexes the data. It kind of pre-scans the data. So it has it. I'm trying to find the right analogy for it, but it's kind of like it has a kind of like it's pre-read the system. So it's like, yeah, I know, I think I know where it is. And so it can kind of jump to that area that it knows where it is. So it's much more in tune, much better at quickly searching for specific data among millions and millions of data points. That's the main key element there. So in this situation, the best scenario here would be, yeah, to have the database just search for this specific connection when this user watches it. And so this is why even when you're watching a video, even though it's not a secured route, the system will still send your ID to the backend to let you know, hey, this person's watching it, so the backend can then say, well, does this person like it? Yep, okay, send down the true flag. Sound good? And again, is that exactly how they're doing it? No, but this is probably what I would imagine they would do, and it makes sense, right? All three of these solutions are viable ways of solving this problem. Yeah, we probably won't want to. I guess the main takeaway, of course, is just you wouldn't want to send down the entire list. So it's probably one directional again. So let's do this. Got a generated value. We'll go ahead and do our private ID. Where'd they go? One second. I switched my tabs because I wanted to show that. There it is, I think. Yep, there's my notes. Okay, cool. All right. Next thing we create is the first mapping that's going to connect us to the developers. So this is a at many to 1. And I didn't do the import, so this time we're going to add, again, we're going to continue adding that fetch type in there because that's really useful for these items to make sure that it's, oops, not that. We want the system to not bog down our system and try to pull all the information. So we're going to keep it as lazy so that it doesn't always search right away. I'm going to do the at column we've done before. Name is going to be developer ID. Column name is just, again, ID. Again, these are both this is the name of the column here on this table, and this is the column, this is the item referenced in the target entity. Again, as you see, we're not identifying that here, but we can, of course, we can identify it, but we don't have to because we're going to identify it through this private developer. Once we add this, it's going to create a target entity through this object. All right. If anytime you did decide to change the entity name by doing this and giving it a different name, like you wanted to call it likes, like that, then you would have to add that in because there's no guarantee that it might catch it through the object type, through the entity name type. So just be aware of that. The object here is telling our system what entity to go look for. It's going to go look for an entity under the term developer. Developer, done. So that creates the one directional. So the first many to 1. So you have many likes to a single developer. Now same thing here. We're going to have many likes to a single video. At many to 1. Fetch type lazy. At join column name. Let's do the sanity check. Which one's this one now? What should this be?
Geek out ID.
It is. Geek out, yeah. Column name, and again, sanity check. What should that be?
ID.
Yep. Yep. And done. Last thing I'm going to do for these is I'm going to simplify the system by just putting in here our at JSON ignore properties. And unfortunately, this is actually going to be a fairly long list because we really just need the ID number of the developer. We don't need any information other than just the developer's ID number, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to bring developer over to the side here. I'm going to add in a bunch of things. So we're gonna put in name, email, cohort, languages, avatar. I think that's all the fields. Yep. So avatar, languages, cohort, email, name, and we get ID only. So it's ever only going to give us the ID for this thing.
So is that, so is this a reason why you should keep your, objects fairly, like your objects or entities fairly small?
Two reasons. One, again, with Java is to prevent that nested issue that we saw before. So we
Well,
don't
no.
have items referencing items. But the
Well-
other reason of that is just, again, common practice is to minimize data sent down that is not necessary for the front end. If the front end doesn't need it, you shouldn't send it down.
No, well, I was more pointing to that the bigger your entity slash object gets and you want to ignore stuff, this thing just can get, just ignore properties.
True. In that case, what
Very
you would
huge.
do here is you would create, what I could do in this case is right here, and this is going to be a little interesting, but just bear with me 2 seconds.
Yeah, you could make a static final.
Click static. String. Exclude. Ooh. Oops. And I could just take this. Paste, and then if I'm right in here, I'm pretty confident I can use that now. Order dot exclude props.
Oh, that's cool. Well,
Would it be easier to just use JSON include properties?
What's that?
I was gonna ask the
Oh,
same
wait,
thing.
is there an include properties?
There is an include
I saw an
property.
include, I didn't see include properties. No way.
There's, yep.
Ooh, you know what? Let's double check it. I'm gonna pull it up. I saw the include, I couldn't find include properties. Because, yeah, that's what I wanted. I just want to make sure that JSON include properties is it excludes all but what's included. The idea is that it should, that whatever you put in there will include only those. It does, to only include specified fields from being serialized or deserialized. There you go, guys. You can see it. So you know, I'm not doing anything weird. I'm literally just going to the Jackson annotation documentation from the package we're using. So here it is. So you get the annotation type JSON include properties to only include specified fields from being serialized and deserialized. So only these items will be put in. So that's actually good that they have that one. All right, good. I knew the JSON including it was there, but I didn't know they had included properties. Awesome, actually. So then we're gonna just
what I
do
did, so everything else would be excluded.
exactly. At least that's the expectation. So we'll check it out and confirm. And I don't need this now.
Well, my whole point was like, doing that is just like the string can be so long and be.
Oh
such
no,
a
it could be.
huge
Yeah.
font because your object's so huge. And
Yeah,
I-
100%.
And that becomes, does that become a point where you like, well, maybe I should start like breaking down this object because.
In that case, yes. If your exclusion array gets really massive, it actually can be better. And this is a security system that some companies do, where secure data or data you do not want to include 90% of the time, you'll actually put in a separate database, separate table that's just connected by the user ID. So it's a one-to-one that is there. What it does is it pulls this data aside so that you can just exclude that property by just doing a JSON ignore. That way it doesn't bring that property down at all, but it still has that data there for internal use. And again, that's really, when we talk about that a bit, that's actually more what I would more discuss looking into what's called JSON views. So that is something that, again, Jackson has, that are views that you can have, like you said, again, a public and an internal view. So on a route where you pull the data and then you apply the internal view to it, it'll only include the data that's been identified as public. So it'll include only the public items, and that's it. What you can also do is make sure that that internal extends public. So that means an internal item would want all the public data plus the internal data. And so that way, when you pull the data out, you then apply the internal view, which would then make sure to include all the public data and all the internal data for that review, which can be useful for like administrative routes and stuff like that. So when you're an admin looking at the exact same page, you want more data. Right.
Oh, yep, yeah.
Or looking at your profile versus looking at someone else's profile, you want that view of like, hey, here's the JSON data for your profile. So I'm gonna send you down more data, more personal data. Whereas someone looking at your profile, I'm gonna send the private version of it. Sorry, the public version. So you have the private data and the public data. So again, that's really where you would want to learn about what are called, like I said, the Jackson views system, which can be really good, but that's more out of scope than what we have here. But just there's tons of systems you can use to organize, clean, and make sure you're sending good data, clean data, and only what the front end needs. Like I said, again, I think it was a couple episodes back before the LinkedIn one, but there was the one about, again, the European prime minister, ex-prime minister, put his boarding pass on. And again, there was hidden data in the background of the web page. That just meant that the company was sending data down that the front end didn't need. 90% of the users didn't see it. 98% of the users didn't see it, but that one person who knew how to do the inspect source was able to find it. And actually, I think there's a funny article or funny video somewhere where someone tried to say that doing that is hacking. Inspecting the source of a web page is hacking.
Oh yeah, wasn't that the governor in like Minnesota or something?
No, it was Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
I just remember hearing someone say that, and I was like, "Oh, no, it's not."
We're
But
hacking, bro.
we hacking, bro. Lead hack source, right? Or from Cullen there for a second. Lead hack source, right click, inspect source. Such hacking skills.
No, some of the biggest breaches are not even like hacking per se. It's just more social engineering, convincing someone to give your information and then just using that.
Yeah, phishing, social engineering. Those are some, I actually do find some of those episodes of the podcast I listen to being much more fascinating sometimes than even the hacking stuff can be more interesting. So social engineering, just walk someplace with a hard hat, a clipboard, and a pen, and just have a Bluetooth headset in. You're good to go. No one will bother you. Everyone will think you belong. Oh, and a keychain with a bunch of keys on it.
Yeah.
If you have a key.
That Twitter breach was so hilarious. How that kid just got all the access to all those tokens just by convincing people he worked for Twitter.
Yeah.
Your charisma score is just as valuable as your technical skills score.
Very true. Like I said, yeah, apparently it's true. Yeah, you walk someplace with a keychain that has a lot of keys on it, some sort of like just a semi-business looking a suit, something professional looking outfit, and a clipboard, no one bothers you. And walk with purpose. That's it. You get in. You'll get pretty far before someone stops you. I can guarantee it.
Confidence.
Of course, if someone does stop you, do not tell them I tell you to do that. I will deny it.
Yeah, Arnell sent me here.
What was that, Colin?
I was saying Arnell sent me here.
Career Devs does not supply get out of jail free cards.
We unfortunately do not yet. No. not in the inventory.
You always say Big Louie sent me.
Big Louie, nice. We're going to use that JSON include properties again, and just again include the ID again. Nice. We're going to take advantage of that twice now. Did I do something wrong?
Yeah, you forgot your at symbol.
Yes, I did. Thank you. And that's mine. So now for you guys, you'll definitely be able to add more data here. Fields, including more relationships. For me, I'm just going to do this one because this is all, again, I could do this with a many-to-many and just give the table a name of likes. So in the, not language, developer, yeah. Right here on this guy, I could call the join table likes, developer ID, geek out ID. My system doesn't need this separate table in order to do this. I'm doing this specifically for you guys for your system because your system rental is going to need more fields. I want to show this more complex system, so just be aware of that. Other than that, there's nothing different between what I'm doing and what you're doing, just because, again, I'm not taking advantage of the many JPA system. I'm putting a middleman in the way. So with that being said, though, we're going to do our constructors, our generators. So generate our constructor, select none to get our blank one. I have more empty space there. Oop, not that. Generate again, the constructor, developer and geek out, no ID long. So we'll create that. And last but not least, let's go ahead and generate our getters and setters. Not that, that one. For all. There we go. All right. Now for the next question. So on our term. Here. So, where is it? All right, we have to build it. Never mind. Looking for something that's not there yet. Let's build our repository. No, wait, no repository yet. We need to go ahead and add it to developer and geek out potentially. Let's think we should. So, developer, that's the next piece. Right. For the developer over here, we then pull that back actually. And like, where'd you go? Let's use that. Know what we're working on over here. So a developer, whenever we pull a developer, so let me go ahead and make sure this is running right now. It is not, so let's run it. Ooh, do I still have my, I do have it. Nice. No, pull that over. Come here. Yeah, I didn't get rid of it. Awesome. That's awesome. What? What is the term for geek out in the database then? Is it not geek out ID? But we used that already before. All right. Let's go ahead and look in our database and find out. This is useful actually for you guys. We can take a look at how to test. Oops, not that. Why? Equal test. Double typing the password now. There we go. So again, the way to use this once you're in as root. Now again, if you log in as your actual user, you'll log into that database directly because that's the one you have access to. But for this, I'm going to do show databases again, which I know what it is. So I don't want to do that. There's our geeky likes. I'm going to do use geeky likes. Now, the reason why we do that is we don't want to have to type geeky likes every time we try to run a command against the database. If you aren't in a database, when you run a command, you have to do the database name dot table name. So we're doing this, we don't have to do that. We just do a table name. And also I do show tables. This is geek out. ID, so geek out underscore ID should be valid. What did I do?
Go up a little bit further though. You still have still more error messages to look at.
Mm,
Still says alter table and constraint, foreign
Hmm.
key developer ID.
we do want that. Begin not allowed. Begin not null. All correct. Fine. We're creating DDL table like.
Executing DLL create table like.
Is that what I wanted to? So we should be fine. Open it up already. Geek out ID. Create table like ID big int, not null, auto increment. Fine. Developer ID big int. Geek out ID big int. Primary key ID. Good. What do they not like? They're executing DDL, create table. So it doesn't like that. Okay.
What should be one of these, what should one of these fixed like things you can't use the word like, but if you typed in S like it would like work or something. I don't know.
Let's see, another, instead of liking it, what can we call it? I know, actually, I think you might be right on that. 'Cause I think like is actually a term in SQL now that I think about it. You know, you're right. I think like is a reserved keyword, I think.
Yeah, I hate debugging stuff, like going through everything and then finding out, oh, it's a keyword. You can't use that. I'm like, really?
So we have where something, and I think we have like something as well. So we like, so it's like the kind of close kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because you
instead
can
of
do,
instead of liking geek outs, what can we do?
We can approve.
I was thinking approved also.
I like it. We'll deal with it.
But yeah, you
Approve.
can do get.
Dislike is not approved.
So, but what is it? What is it exactly that we're liking?
A geek out, a post,
A geek out, a post, yeah.
So, like post, that's what I would call it.
geek out. We call our
Like
posts
geek
geek
out.
outs.
It's
Yeah.
it's unique. It's unique. It's not, it's just a boring post. It's a geek out.
I'm gonna rename like to that.
But yeah, because you can make a SQL
Yep.
statement like get
That was
name
it.
like Jim or like Cliff, and it'll get something similar to that search.
Hold on a minute. What was that?
I said you could do a SQL thing like get names and then you say like Cliff. and
Yeah,
then, well,
I knew
find
it.
things like that, like Cliff's name, like anything that
Yep,
kind of-
that sounded very familiar once you said it. I'm like, wait, I think you're right. I just renamed like to rename. Gonna love that. There you go. Approve, 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 approve. If we reboot it, but yeah, you're totally right. Like is a reserved keyword of MySQL. Well, there you go. That was an interesting bug to run into. So now if you see that, you have an idea of what it might be.
There you go.
There it is. Didn't like.
And you
There
can
you
probably troubleshoot that all night if I didn't think like that was a.
It would have taken me a second. I probably would have Googled that at some point and been like, why is it not liking this? Then I would have found it. But yeah, as soon as you said it, I remember seeing that earlier. All right. There we go. Approvals. Approves.
Yeah. Can also
We have our
go,
approved system. Which again, can be likes, and you could have also just named it something slightly different. Like I think, what is it? David gave a hint of something like we could have even called it like geek outs or like posts or something.
yeah,
So there's a bunch of different things we could have called it.
geek like.
Approve works, it's fine.
Hmm.
Geek like, yeah, because that's the name of our application, so it's a geek like, but this fine, approve works, it'll get the job done. So there we go, we got that. Now it's actually running, which is good. So that now exists. So just wanna do that now. So let's see again. If I now pull a developer, let's pull up Jim again. Do I want a list of all the videos they liked here? So I have the list of their languages. But do I want a list here of all their likes? Or do I just want to be able to later on say find all geek outs liked by this person, and that'd be a separate route, separate system.
Yeah, separate system.
So we wouldn't want that listed, right?
Right.
So then in that case, it would be a one directional, right?
Well, the thing I would say, no, you don't want to show all the likes of every post, but wouldn't it be okay? Would it be just nice data to say this person liked X amount, just like count them and then just count them and then give it a total?
Yes, but let's see if I can remember how to do that.
Well, I mean, you don't have to. I'm just making a suggestion.
Yes,
on that.
but
We don't
to
really have
do that, so JPA does not provide any sort of what are called calculated fields. So JPA doesn't do calculated fields. If we wanted to do that, we would have to get that data ourselves and then run our own calculation afterwards, or run a SQL script that would get us that number through a count. So we could do that. And I forgot. I totally forgot to find that cheat sheet for the JPA naming conventions. Got to find that again. I feel like there's one that does actually that you can build a count one for it. I just can't remember if that's actually what I saw or just one I thought that I saw, but I'll have to check on that. But yes, you can of course just create the SQL script. There is a SQL query that counts the results of it. So
Okay.
it doesn't actually return the results. You literally just, instead of select a star, you count. So you count star of all the records. So you can actually do that in SQL, in MySQL directly. So you can find that script and run that, create a JPA function for it with the query command, and then put that number and put it in. With our controller, the downside of that, of course, is you would need to create a child class, a static child class for that method that you would then return.
Okay.
So that's one of those other things you do. Again, that's getting a little more advanced, and that I didn't really want to touch base on too much because I don't want to get too fancy with these things. But you can also create objects, static temp objects inside of a method. So create a class in that method that is one time, one is a temp use, quick use. You create it, it's inside the class, you build it, and you can return that item. And Jackson will attempt to serialize that as well. The reason why you would make it a child is that you get all the same annotations from the parent again. And this is how you can add additional data to an existing object to pass down in the body of your system. For example, if you want to send down 2 objects or multiple objects, you could do that. Or also just create your own, if you wanted it in a JSON format. Now, a list, you could just create a list. That you don't need a new object. But for a new object with key value pairs, now you need a new object or a new class for that. So we might still cover that. I want to find a good example of it, but yeah. And I'm actually going to.
I figured you could do it, but I didn't know how easy or how much like more work it would have to. I figured you could just do like a dot length or something and it'll have it returned, but obviously it is.
We would have to have, if for a dot length, we would have to have the 2 directional and tell it to do a JSON ignore.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, we can do one way. As for the, let's look at the geek outs then. Same thing with the geek outs. So geek out, let's go here. I go to geek out. I hit send. Let's send on for 8. Hit send again. Do I want a list of all the likes?
No.
All right. This one I could say would be a little more okay with just sending the list of IDs for now, so we can at least make sure our front end can identify who's liked it. So I'm okay with this side being 2 directional for the moment, with a plan to change that to a count, as Jim said, and a Boolean value of whether or not they do or do not like this. That makes sense? So that's what I would say about this one. This one, let's go ahead and make that bi-directional connection for now. We'll get a list of the IDs of the users that like each geek out, so that our front end can just check that and say, yep, this ID is here. Make that thumbs up colored in. Color in that thumbs up. They've already liked this once. Don't let them like it again. Make sense? So we'll do that 2 directional on that side. For now, at least. Like I said, we'll probably update this later to return a count of likes and just a Boolean value of whether or not this person has liked it or not, the person who's requesting, if they're logged in. So anyway. Oh, wait, not that first. At many. We're going to go ahead and use that mapped by. And if I remember correctly, it is the field again. All right, the field we're going to create. Oh no, the field that is in the other one, right? So we're going to go ahead and type in. It is going to be the geek out. That's the name of the field in the other table. I'm just going to put here private list or set likes. Not likes. Approve. Rules. I gotta import the set. There we go. That should do it. If you look back at what we did for language, not language, sorry. Right here, same thing. Oh yeah, let's not forget our fetch. So I'm going to copy that this time to make our lives a little easier. Got back over. Fetch type. And we're going to do the same thing here at JSON include properties. So nice to have that now. ID. We just want the ID of the user, nothing else. Look good.
One second. Why are we using the map by on the one-to-many?
Like I said last time, this is again simplifying the system, helping that that it's not this repetitiveness to it.
Mhm.
The approved system has already created that mapping of the join table. So it already told it how these two are connected. And so
Okay,
we're just telling Geek Out to refer to approve on how we want to do the join column. How does this join column work?
okay, so we only need the join column on one of the two then,
Exactly.
and then map, and then the mapped by the, okay, all right.
Yep. There you go. So get that. Now we'll go ahead and let's take a look for a second. So how do we want to add this? We definitely want probably the like repository because we need to create these new likes. So we do need the like repository. Or sorry, approved repository. It'll mess me up now. Thanks, MySQL. We got our approved repository, and that's approve, which is not right. So try that again, and it's also not an interface. So you know what? Let's redo this entirely. Delete. New class interface. Approved repository. Ends JPA repository. Approve, comma, long. There we go. On the other side, though, I don't think we need a like controller. I believe instead of it just being sent to the like system, a developer is going to like a video, right? And so this could, sorry, video, I'm thinking YouTube now. It's gonna like a Geek Out. So we could either put this again, more items under the developer route, or we could also throw this into the Geek Out controller, where we like a Geek Out. As we do like ID, and in the body of the like, we can include the user ID or a query param, either one. We have multiple options, but the main key thing here is we're gonna be creating a like, so which verb would that be? Which HTTP verb is for creation?
Post.
Post.
Yes, posting. I like it in the Geek Out controller because again, it's going to be /geekout/like/ID of the video, or sorry, /ID of the video /like, and the body of the video of the item. We can then put the user ID. For now, again, later on, we'll be adjusting a bunch of these to use login credentials, to use authentication tokens to identify who's actually liking it. So that's why we're going to send it in the body for the moment. But later on, we won't need anything in the body. It'll be authenticated through the headers. When we authenticate the user and find out who is actually logged in, and that's how we'll pull who likes it, not through sending it. Because then if we really want to be malicious, I could just create code that just constantly likes all the videos. Or I could do a search in videos again, whatever. I could go through videos of all the child videos and just, send Matt's ID through and have him like all kid videos on YouTube. I'm like, that might ruin his recommendation systems.
Yeah, yeah. Although I might get some more wholesome algorithm suggestions that way.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. There's some weird children videos out there nowadays.
Well, yeah, not as bad as
Depends on
Elsa
YouTube.
Gate, but there's still some
True.
terrible stuff out there.
Very, very true. Post mapping.
So can this also be a put because you're technically really updating the record? You're not really generating a new record.
No, because we're not updating a record. We actually are creating a new entity in the like table.
Oh, in the like table, yes. Okay.
Yep, or in the approved table. Sorry. So yeah, we are doing it. Could you do this as a put?
Because you're updating the geek post, also the developer too, aren't you? Because you need to add those two in when you do this.
In a way, yes, but then also in a way, no. So it's kind of this. It's where again, it's a little different. And yeah, that's something that's interesting here. We do need to pull not really, because again, we're going to get the ID. So we don't need to pull the developer account. We're just going to use the ID they have. Now we might want to. We're going to assume that we're going to get a valid user ID. Because again, later on, we're going to update the system to use authentication. And so there's no way for us to not get a valid user ID unless the authentication fails. So there's no reason for us to assume to test to see if the ID number is bad. If this was the only way we were doing it, then yes, we'd have to test to make sure the ID actually exists. Because later on, our system is going to use authentication. We're going to code our system today as if anytime a user ID comes in, it's already been validated. We know that that ID is valid. Because later on, the validation will be the authentication process. That makes sense, kind of, somewhat?
Yeah.
Cool. Might not make full sense yet, but like I said, when we have our authentication system, we're just going to say when the route comes in, it's going to validate that key. In the validation of the key process, it actually gets the user ID information. And so we're going to be getting a user ID through code, not through a user typing their ID in. So we know that that ID is going to be a valid ID. So this going to do post mapping like slash ID. And this specifically is the geek out that we're liking. We'll go ahead and we don't really need to return any content, do we? We just need to return 201 created, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless we want to send, well, no, we do need to send back the new geek out with the new list of that person's ID and then make sure that that icon lights up. So the little thumbs up button stays lit up. So we will do we're going to send back a geek out. I don't know. Yes, we're going to send back a geek out, but there is one thing that we might have to deal with. What is another item we might need to deal with? So yes, we do need to return the 201 potentially. We could do that. What else might we need to return? Are we always going to get a 201?
No.
What else could we get?
You get a 404
On what?
on the geek out.
Thank you. Yes, not on the user, the geek out. Yes. So we do want that response entity. And it's not just because of the 404, it's the 201. The 404, we know we can handle with the response status exception or else throw process. So we can do this process in order to kick back the not found, but we do need the response entity still for the 201 created, that we successfully created the like or approve, which I should probably, no, we can actually use the like in the route. So as far as the front end, we can use the term like. Our back end may be using the term approve, but the front end can use the term like. That's one thing I do want to make sure you guys are clear on. The front and the back end don't need to match. This does not need to match. So even though you might run into a keyword issue, you can still use that word in your front end. So we'll keep it like. Variable. At request body. Again, the only thing we're expecting out of here is the ID. We got that. So far, so good.
Yes.
All right. Next thing I'm going to do is we're actually going to create a like. Actually, an approve, sorry. Bring it in. Yes. New approval equals new approval, new approve. And in this case, we can actually give it, which is the order again. Is it developer first? So yep. Developer. And then we also need to give it a geek out, which we don't have yet, do we? So let's change that actually. First thing we need to do is actually find the geek out. So first, geek out equals repository dot. I don't remember get. Oh, that's the method, right? So find by ID. We're also going to put this as an optional because we're actually going to go ahead and do the, we're not going to do the or else throw this time. We'll go ahead and do it ourselves. Since we do have the response entities, we can do that. If that is empty, response entity null status. With that,
So why can't I not like an empty geek out?
well, if the geek out is empty, that means we got a bad ID. And so we're going to try to like something that doesn't exist.
But how would you get a bad ID on a geek out that doesn't exist?
Mostly this will just be, again, a malicious person trying to send a request in, or
Okay.
a cached page of a geek out that was deleted by the poster. So if
Okay,
you're looking at the page and as you're looking at it and reading it, the original poster deletes that geek out, you can still hit the like button because your front end doesn't know that that item was deleted yet. So then the request goes in, we get it, and even though your ID was valid when you were looking at it, in our database, it is not. So it's just a safety mechanism. Yes, again, in the beginning, if you guys want to assume that it's there, unfortunately, Java won't let you. So that's part of it. Java won't let you, if you don't do this, it's going to say, hey, you haven't done this yet. So I'll comment that out in a second, but here we can do developer and then geek out. And just for the fun of it, I'm gonna go ahead and do, oh, right. That gap, that's it, yep, because the optional. To do that, but if I comment this out, see what what Spring does or what IntelliJ does? Optional get without is present check, without checking to see if that item is there or not. So you're gonna get that wording from Spring. It's gonna say, hey, just so you know, there's no guarantee that what you're asking for is gonna be found, and you're gonna run a .get, and if it's not there, this will crash your program. This will kill the server. So be aware of that. That's why you want to still put this here, even if you know it. Let's say, yeah, you set up your front end where there's no way for them to send a bad ID. Even then, we've already talked about it, packet sniffers. There is ways to pick up a HTTP request as it's going. So if you're one of those people sitting at Starbucks and you have Kali Linux installed in your computer, there's a lot of these tools. You can connect in and you set up your computer, or let's say a little mini modem that you set up to be a bridge mode. So you're redistributing the exact same signal that, let's say, Starbucks is pushing out to their customers. People, though, connect to your signal because you have a higher quality router, so it has a stronger signal. So the people that are connecting to that Wi-Fi automatically connect to yours automatically because the computer will prioritize higher signals. It sends the packet through, your Kali Linux sees that packet enter the system, you grab it and stop that packet. You say, nope, don't send it just yet. You bring it in, your system automatically updates the code to change data on it, just to mess with it. It sends it out to our system. this is something that criminals can do. They can take a HTTP request, and instead of actually sending it out to, let's say, LinkedIn, they'll send you a different page. Or let's say you ask for your bank, they'll send you a HTML page back to you that they created of that bank page. So you see a bank page, as long as you're paying attention to it, you should notice that it is not active, is not good quality. There's problems with it, and it's not actually the right page. But it will look like it's the right domain name. The URL at the top will show your bank URL that you typed in. This is, again, so many reasons why you do not want to log into your banking stuff when you're out in public, unless you're on a VPN. Not to scare everybody. It's like, oh, Jesus, what can people do to me? Let's see. So get that. So yeah, you still want to put these in there just for the safety mechanisms, just because you don't know what people are going to do to your system. Got that. So now we create the new approval between the developer and this geek out that we have. And then we need to save it, but we don't. Do we have access to the approve repository yet? We do not. So let's go ahead and give ourselves access to it. So wired, private. Yeah. Approve repository. Approve repository. Do. Repository.save. New approval. Geek out. Oops, sorry. New response entity. Geek out. HTTP status. Created. And as we saw before earlier, I'm not sure why, but sure. Oh, right, because I got to do the .get. It's an optional, right? Keep forgetting geek out is an optional. So sometimes what people might do here is they'll do like a geek out _o, just so you know that it's an optional version. So you'll know that this is optional. So you need to do .get. So that can be nice if that's something you run into a lot of times when using these optionals. Something to consider. Anyway, get response entity. This will do it. And as we've seen before, when we did the what did we do? When we did the languages, I think it was. We updated something, then we turned the original version of it, that original version was updated as well. So even though this is the original version before the approval existed, through how these mappings work, this will do it. Most because we have the what is it? The cascade system set up as default, I think is all. So that's one last thing that I will kind of hint at that you guys can look into. Over here.
Yeah, it's on here. Yeah, there's a cascade in here.
So this thing right here, cascade. This again is that concept of how do you handle those other relationships? When one of these is saved, do you update the others during that process? So in normal situations, you tend to want that. So we're working with the geek out when we create that new approval and that approval is saved, we want to make sure that the current geek out that we're working with is updated to reflect that new change without us having to create a new request to the database. Does that make sense? So that's what this does for us. This cascade system helps with that. If you don't want that happening, you want to make sure you contain that original version. For most cases, there can be situations that you might need that. So that's what this involves. That if we approve this, when we save the approval, don't update the geek out that we actively already have. Keep it the same. If I want the updated version, I will pull the updated version. Sound good? All right. Cool. And this goes both ways because again, you mentioned that you noticed before how we did the mapped by. So that means the geek out will also take this same cascade behavior. So if we save the geek out and that's going to affect the approval somehow, it would update the approve. Most times it won't because very rarely when we update the geek out is the approval actually being affected. So it most likely won't update. But if it did, it will.
So just to reiterate, cascade is like from the parent and it'll update all the way down to the children. All the way. It'll go update all of them. But then like Cliff said, you can restrict those by changing all to the other
And again, to make sure this is clear, it's not database related. We're not changing the databases. We're updating the objects that we're dealing with, the instantiated objects of those items that are relating to the database. Remember, there is no reference inside of the geek out that says like ID. So this is all built or structured by JPA. JPA does these joins to pull this additional data down. So this data isn't in the table. So this cascade doesn't say, hey, when we save this approval row in SQL, update the row in geek out, because nothing changes in the geek out row. We don't make any changes to that geek out row when we create a new record in the approved table. What we do cascade are the instances of the geek out that we have that is related to this approval. So it'll check to say, hey, this geek out right here, go away, zoom thing. So this geek out we have here, nope. There we go. This geek out right here that we have is connected now to this approval. So once we save this one, it does the cascade, says the geek out ID, notices that this geek out has the same ID, and does the cascade update. If we had a second geek out here that had a different ID, that one wouldn't get cascade updated. Sound good? JPA does a lot for you. Just be aware of that. There's a lot of things going under the hood that is helping you out to make this whole thing possible. Which on one hand, definitely beneficial to us coding now versus in the past, because there's a lot of things you had to do manually and had to remember to do a lot of these things. So definitely be appreciative of those things. Cool, that gets us a like. Let's see if this works. So reboot our system. It likes the code, so that's good. Oh, that. Just doing the tab, paste that in. Let's find that geek out again. That's from Jim. So let's see. I'm going to do a geek out like /8. So I'll like the 8th one. Go back here, get a developer number for that. I'm number 4, so I will like Jim's first post. So body, raw, JSON, ID. So that's me. I am liking post 8, which is Jim's first post. Again, later on, we'll actually be passing a key in the headers field. So in here, we're going to add a key where we're going to paste our authorization token here, and that'll get sent across to the system, and the body will actually be empty. Yeah. So let's send that. Method not allowed. Oh, right, post. Switch to post, make sure you do that. There it goes. Seems to be okay with it. Didn't get the updated list though, so let's see. Didn't include it. Why? Oh, right. Setters and getters. Everybody head back to your Geek Out tab. Add to your, down here, we add the getters and setters for the likes. So generate, getter and setter, approval. Reload your app. There's the list. Shows that.
Proof of ID 1. That's the ID of one of the table, not the actual person. That's probably the approval of the ID of the approval.
Oh, right. I'm being dumb. So in the Geek Out table here, we put the included properties of approvals as ID. If you remember correctly, our approval system actually has an ID itself. The ID we want is the developer ID, which is developer underscore ID. So that's the JSON property we want to include. So I was looking at them like, why does it seem like Jim liked his own item? So we want developer underscore ID is the property we want. And that'll give them my ID number 4. One more time. Just because just because I like the code doesn't mean it's right. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what that means, know that feeling. Yeah. I'm sure if there were more cameras showing, you'd see a lot more nodding. Are we okay today? Why was so many cameras off today? Even Travis has disappeared. Can't see him.
I mean, my camera's in such an
But he's
awkward
the void. What's that, Colin?
my camera's in such an awkward position just because of dual monitors. You'd be staring at an unmade bed. So
Fun.
comparing you.
I mean, I feel you. Like I'm looking at my front screen and it kind of looks like I'm not paying attention, but I'm looking at what you guys are doing.
I can't say anything to you, Sergio, because I do the same though. I'm always doing this. So.
I look like I'm always
You and
looking
me
at
are
the
pretty much
front.
staring at the same thing on my
It's like,
screen.
I'm like looking into the void, you know.
No, for me, you and me are both staring at Matt. So
Yeah.
just the layout of the videos now. I think Travis is there. I think he's just the weird random black void today.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep. His lights are off, I think. He's sitting in the dark.
Yeah, sitting in the dark.
That's why he's the black void today.
Staring into the abyss over there.
Hey, it's dark on the moon.
Dark
He's
side.
back inside though, at least. Let's see. Yeah, so there we go. Go around that. Let's make sure it works. Let's send again, and I got nothing.
Developer ID is part of the MySQL. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jason. Yeah, that's.
Oh, that means I don't want. I want to unwrap. Oh, what's that annotation for that? No, I still should do it. I want to include the developer field property, but I only want to include the ID of that item, nothing else. What I want. Oh, wait, I know what I can do. Back to approve here. Here, yeah. Just include properties. No, so it should still do it. So yeah, this is just going to include the ID only. And so in here, include the developer. Let's see what it does. Let's see what it does. Let's see. Still should have done it. Developer underscore ID should have done developer object underscore ID. And so it should have just done the ID of the developer property.
Oh, you didn't show it?
No, it didn't.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I see, empty.
It did it, right. Okay, that worked. So the approvals, developer ID. Not a beautiful object, but gets the point across for the time being. We can, of course, mess with that a little bit more. So what it does here is it gets the developer property. If we go back to the approve, is this field here. But approve has this field restricted to just the ID of developer. So that applies. So you're doing two annotations in two separate systems. Sound good? Good. I will take your time on this stuff, and in the beginning, don't worry so much. In the beginning, just do the JSON exclude ignore properties of your nested items, the lists inside. So developer, ignore your language and your languages and your geek outs, those lists that are going to reference other objects as well. If that's all you do with the JSON ignore items for the beginning, that's good enough to start. You can hide other things once you realize you don't need them. All right. So beginning, just hide those nested items. Make sure that those things don't happen. Later on, you can hide more. Sense?
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely not something that you guys are going to perfect the very first time you do it. There's going to be a lot of trial error of checking. Hey, does this get me the data I want? Nope. Does this get me the data I want? Nope. Does this get me the data I want? Too much data. So trial and error with some of this stuff sometimes. That looks accurate. What I want to do now, though, is I do want to go back here to the likes. Let's go ahead and have Matt. I'm going to make you like this. So,
Okay.
okay, you all right with that? See if this returns our list as well. And it does. And so at the time, yes, as Jim pointed out, what our front end could do is do approvals.length and find out how many likes it has. And at the same time, also search the approvals object to find the ID to see if that person likes it. Again, this object is not great because we have it, it's nested items, so it's approvals.developer.id. So it's for each item we have to find, so it's not gonna be the best index of or find. But you can use find index or includes and check to see if a specific object exists. So it's definitely doable.
Can I see the approved class again, please?
Yes, of course. There it is.
Okay, we just put those back to ID then.
Yeah, that's right. It
Okay.
was the geek out that has developer now.
Oh, can I see Geek Out then, please?
Yep, I figured that's what you're looking for. So geek out's JSON include properties is developer.
JSON include properties is develop. Oh, I have develop. Oh no, I have ignore. Wait a minute. On the
So I wonder if the JSON include properties, you could put the curly braces and only put in like, a few fields.
oh
Go a little further.
oh I'm in Geek
No,
Out,
in
not
Jim.
in developer.
You know how you did the ignore one where you put the curly braces in and you specify the fields to
Oh yeah,
ignore?
you did it before.
Yeah, but you could do this with the include. You could put the curly braces in and put all the ones you want to include.
Exactly. Yep. So just like in ignore properties, it can be either a single string or an array, a string array. So inline string array. Curly brackets, individual strings of each property you want to include. The main thing to be included, the understand that this is a whitelist system. So JSON include properties is a whitelist system. Include only these items that I put in this, either the one item or the list of items. JSON ignore properties is a blacklist system. Include everything but what I put in. That's where you can look at it. Anything else? Anything else?
Hey, I had stepped away for a few minutes earlier. Can you do a quick review of the approved model?
Yeah. So right here we got the approved model. We create an ungenerated ID. Again, mine doesn't need this because I'm using it just to link the two together, but I'm doing this for you guys so when you guys do your rental system, this looks accurate so you have the multiple fields you want. We definitely want to make sure we can pull multiple fields for your rental system because you guys are definitely going to want to store more than just who rented which car. The length of the rental, like I said, the amount of miles driven, the cost, any of those, any information that you guys can come up with. So again, have fun with that. Be creative, come up with a couple fields. Now what I want to do last is actually just kind of show this in action. I want to show this work. So trying to think of the two things we want to search for. Find developers by like. Hold on. Trying to think of the query.
Don't you want to find the ID of the geek outs of the developers?
Find the geekouts that a developer liked.
Yeah. So wouldn't you want to get the ID of those? Could you look for the ID of the geek out based on the ID of the developer?
Yes. It's right here. Something similar to this pretty much. Do not in developer repository though. Let's put this here, those who can reference it. We'll do the geek out repository because we want to pull it. We want to pull geek outs. Geek out repository. We get a list of geek outs. Find all. I didn't miss that. I didn't do all. Whatever. Remember the syntax for this. I really should have pulled up that thing again.
Wasn't it a find all by?
Yep. So we want to make sure we find the geek out ID, by ID, and like underscore. Oh, I don't know if that's right, because that's, so this is the table and this is the property. They use the underscore to separate table and property. Problem is, this is the property. So now I'm trying to remember how it does that. Oh, dang it. Let's see if I can find it.
Does it have to take 2 arguments?
One second. Reference documentation. I think that's what I want. Yeah, that's not it. JPA named queries. Oh, here, keywords. I think this is one of the tables that I found before. So we have these, and we can do and. I thought so. Doesn't show how to do the underscore there. So I wonder if I want to convert it from, if I want to change that column header from developer underscore ID to just developer ID. Then I can put that in correctly. You see here, first name. I can put that in, it'll do export that first name. Fine. So these are all the SQL queries, by the way, the SQL keywords and the expression in the sentence that you build in JPA that will equivalent to it. So the more you know of SQL, the more you can also learn these. Case, those are also good too. Those return types.
Oh, so is your thing supposed to be not by like, but by ID and developer ID?
Yeah. No, I want to find all the geek outs by the developer ID under likes. So, but I'm also going to give it a geek out ID.
And
So,
like, I see, yep.
I'm just concerned it's not going to like this. Again, as you know here, the syntax, so this is the table languages or the entity, and then you can do underscore ID to pull a key or a field out of that entity. Problem is, one of our fields is using that underscore. And so I'm concerned that JPA is going to get confused by this, similar to how JPA got confused with the word like. So let's just try it. We'll see.
We've got 2 underscores there.
Right, because again, the column name is developer underscore ID.
Yeah.
If we go back to geek out, not geek out,
Wait,
prove
isn't the table like
that.
Oh, no, table's not like. No, table's approve.
Yep. Oh, I got to change that. You're right. But anyway, approve underscore developer ID. But the problem is my column name is using the underscore as well. And so that's why I'm concerned that JPA might not like it.
Right, but my question would be though is,
You're right, though. I did do that wrong.
but should that be a capital D and not just not a lowercase d, because that's the actual field name is the lowercase d developer ID.
Ooh, and that might trigger it because yeah, the capital is what tells it it's an entity. So you know what? This might actually be fine. Let's find out. Again, we'll find out. Long ID. Long developer. I'm not going to use it yet. I'm just going to rerun it and see if it likes the naming. It's going to try to turn that. It's going to try to create a SQL query out of that. So I don't even have to try to use it to see if it's okay. Nope, didn't like it. First off, let's just see if it's okay with approve ID. So I'm just going to get the approve ID number, so a single approve ID number, and see if it's okay with that. So I'm going to do 2 items. Pretty sure I'm allowed to give it 2 items.
Nope.
No. All by ID. That should be. Does it not recognize? Invocation of init if it failed, nested exception, da da da. Not create query for public abstract that. This is the downside of the system. It's hard to kind of read it from left to right like this. No property approved found for type geek out. What?
Are we trying to get a list of the geek outs liked by a specific developer?
Sorry, one more time.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of this method? To try to get a list of the geek outs liked by
A
one developer?
Exactly.
Okay.
Says nested exception is, I wonder if it's nesting that it's causing an
Approvals?
error.
Hmm.
I see the word nested a couple of times in it, and it makes me wonder if a nesting is occurring and it doesn't like it.
No property approved found for type geek out. It looks like it's looking at the properties of geek out and it's not finding anything called approved.
Right, we did
so-
languages here. Notice that we did languages, not the entity name, the field name. So this would be approvals because geek out has approvals. So let's try it. And that would be approvals underscore developers underscore ID. So go to the approvals field in Geek Out, then go to the developers field in Geek Out in approval, and then go to the ID field in developer. See what's happening? I'm gonna try that. Before we do that though, let's just do approvals ID. Make sure that works first. If that works, then we'll go one level deeper.
Oh, that works.
Likes that. Try doing developer underscore ID. That should do it. Because it's just doing, it's using the fields.
There you go.
Hey, I liked it. I'm going to change this so now that I'm going to match right. ID. There we go. So we're not, again, Matt keeps trying to remind me we're not matching it to the table names. I think that was you, right, Matt, who said that before last time?
I think so.
Yeah, with the annotation we had, and I had it saying
Oh,
developer underscore
yes.
ID. Yeah, that was you. Keep remembering, I have to remind myself, JPA doesn't care what the table names are. It cares what the items that it knows are. So, yep. So that should be happy. Let's go back to our Geek Out, our developer controller or Geek Out controller. We want to find all the developers that liked, oh no, find all the Geek Outs that a developer liked. So we'll go to the developer controller then. Right? Well, it's Geek Out repository though. What do you guys think? Where should this route be? If I, as a user, want to find all the Geek Outs that I liked, what route should I go to? Should I go to the developer route or the Geek Out route?
The developer route.
The developer routes, I mean, we need to go to the developer controller. That means we would need to make sure we have access to the Geek Out repository. We'll put this under the gets, put it above this one. Mapping, I'll call this likes, all likes, public. And this again is always going to return a list. Even if it's empty, it's going to return a list. So it's going to return a set, I think, but it's fine. We did list. So list of geek outs. Get and for the time being, we're just going to do dev ID because again, we don't have authentication systems yet. We'll just remove that once you have your authentication system in. Now we'll include the developer's ID. And then I can we'll still keep this out because then I want to say, I want to see all the videos that Sergio liked, all the videos that Keith liked, all the videos that Mike liked. Not videos, geek outs. God dang it. Should have done the whole YouTube thing now. I'm stuck on videos now in my head. They're all videos.
Geeky vids.
Geeky vids. Hey, there you go. Update the system. Which that would involve having to store videos, and that's getting busy. You would want to have something like AWS or something so you can store the videos in a online storage, not in your local system. Long dev ID return geek out repository dot find by ID and approvals developer ID. So wait a minute. Why might you find out about the geek out ID? That doesn't make any sense. Nobody questioned me on that, did you? So I'm not saying you should have, but yeah.
Geek ID and a developer ID, right? You need both of those, don't you?
No, because we want to find all the geek outs that this one developer liked.
Oh,
So we don't care about the actual geek out ID. So we just want find by approvals developer ID. So let's fix that. Because I was sitting there like, I don't have an ID to give. I was realizing I don't have an ID to give it. So I was like, I just get the ID. Dev ID. That should work, yeah, because we just want to find all the geek outs by the developer ID that liked it. So under the approval system, any row that has this developer ID, we want that row, right? That should do it. Let's find out. Let's see what we get. Seems to like the item, so let's test. Here we go. Go back to developers. Likes, I think I did likes plural. Yep, plural. And Jim didn't like anything. I liked something, so I'll pull me. Send. And I think that's a geek out. What do you guys think? Does that look like a geek out?
yeah.
I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
For the fun of it, let's go ahead and pull up the geek outs again. Let's grab another one and I'll like it, or we'll have Matt like it because I know Matt is the other one with one like. So we'll have you like Travis's post. So here we'll just put like 9. Send that in. There we go. So now you have 2 likes. So we're going to pull all Matt's likes. And I see Geek Out 1, resistance is futile, and Geek Out 2, coding is fun. Looks like that pulls exactly what we want. I still need to find that better shortcut. This is from Spring, so it's not the cheat sheet. That's the unfortunate thing. This is just the pure data, which, don't get me wrong, is useful, but I want to find that cheat sheet. I'm so upset that I can't find that again. But and again, this does require some knowledge on SQL. So
Time for Cliff to scour the history It's
Seriously.
history.
I search. I'm looking at so many different things on a daily basis. That's gonna be nasty. Pain in
Could
the
you
ass
go?
to do.
Could you go back to the Geek Out repository,
Oh,
please?
yeah, sorry.
Mine's having problems.
There we are. So find all by approvals _ developer _ ID.
Oh,
What do you
that'll
got?
do it. I deleted the by mistake.
Ah, yep. We still need to tell it what we're searching by, what we're finding all by. Yep, find all approvals developer ID. Yeah.
And-
Not really the most legible thing.
All right, good. It booted.
Cool. With this, let me think for a second. Let's say now we want to find, I'm trying to think. I want to go the other direction, but it's really, we technically have the list of developers already, but you know what? Screw it. Let's do this. I want to now, under the, I mean, here as well, I now want to do a list of developers. Not that, sorry. And let's go to the developer item, actually. Developer control, developer repository. Let me put this over here for a second. Over here, this. Now what I want to do is find, sorry, let's do that. Get a list of developers like Geek Out X. Sound good?
Mhm.
All right. Do this part. What we want to do is on their page, type out the name that this might be, that you think it might be. So you have this on the right-hand side to kind of gauge by and guess by to help you. Let's see if you can come up with the naming of this one. I want everyone to type it out. And you know what? I might require you guys to send it to me in the Zoom chat, just what you think it is. Just that way I know everybody's participating. You can do direct message, I don't care. But again, it's not relevant that you're right, just curious what you guys think of. And you guys don't know the actual syntax here. And by the way, thank you, Manny. Mike's eating, got it, okay. So again, so they can't see anybody in the videos that I said that, make sure you understand, if your video's off, you're coming up with the method name that will do this. I highly recommend sending it to me directly. That way no one tries to cheat off of yours. Interesting attempts here. I don't think there's anyone that has the exact same thing. Everyone put a different item in. That's fascinating.
Fascinating. It's like like a
Just
mad,
that there's
mad
that many
scientist over here.
different answers is just so interesting to me.
In a
There's
good
that
way?
many different answers.
In a good way.
To me, I'm just well, yes and no. Like yes, like the fact that you guys are so creative that you're just trying to come up with something, but at the same time, no, because like shoot, I didn't teach the other one well enough for you guys to get it. So it's like, uh-oh.
I'm a little lost myself. What am I supposed to do? Well, how am I supposed to
So
answer?
again, first of all, I'll say is again, let's review. What did this one do? This, get a list of
I think I got it, but I'm not completely,
that liked a developer. Right, so this one gets a list of geekouts liked by a specific developer. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to get a list of developers that liked a specific geekout. So let's give the first piece. So the first piece is what? We know it starts with find. Find
Find by.
what?
be fine
All
by.
by.
Becky?
Find all by.
All, remember, we're trying to find more than one.
Yeah.
If we don't do the all, we'll get the first instance that triggers true.
Oh, because you said get a list of developers that like geek out X, meaning I thought that was one.
Developers.
Oh,
Oh, whoops.
That's the first one.
Geek outs.
Wait, no, we're fine. Okay,
By the way, I just realized this is wrong.
what's wrong?
This will just give me the first one only, so I'm not going to update it, but this is only ever going to give us one geek out
Oh,
anytime we do this one. So it's going to give me the first geek out that this developer made ever. It's never going to actually give me a list of them. It's only going to give me a single one, the very first one it finds. So that's what the all does. The all says find all of the items that are true by this. A find by, it finds the first instance that fits the requirement, that fits the condition. That's the difference.
so in this case, find all by implicitly refers to developers. So that's the developer chopped out of this equation, right?
Yes, because
Okay.
we're under the developer repository.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
Yes.
you want to be able to find the geek out underscore ID because that is the on the developers table.
Is it on the developers table? Let's take a look.
I'm not sure, but my guess.
So we
was
look
that.
under the developer
Guess
method.
at that.
Good. We look under developer. Is there, oh, Jesus Christ. Is there anything connecting us to liking here? So again, we do have this, we actually got rid of the geekouts field. So we no longer have a geekouts field.
Right, okay.
So if you had geekouts, plural, in your method name,
Hmm.
doesn't fit because that field is commented out.
Okay,
And again, we're trying to do liking. So liking was connected by what? What's our entity for likes?
Approve.
Right, approve, right?
oh, okay.
But that's not connected to developer either.
It isn't. And that's the key thing here. When it's a single directional item, we can't do it from this way. We can't do it through developer repository. But let's say it did exist. If the approvals item did exist like it did inside of, where is it? Inside of Geek Out. So just in case, let's say we did do this. Because all you need to do is do this quick. Like that. Pop over here to developer. Paste and just change this to, nope, that's fine actually. No, I don't care about that. Count it out. And match by developer. That would do the same thing now. Now this would have it. Let's do include. Yeah, there we go. So you get the geek out ID. So this would then give us that. So let's say this is here.
Okay, so we get the.
What's the next
All right.
part? Let's think about it again.
You want the ID of the geek out, right?
We want the list of we want the developers. We are going to give it an ID of the geek out.
Oh, okay, that likes
So again, look for all the developers that liked a specific geek out, one geek out. We're finding all the developers. And one thing, I think, if I'm right, I
You
think
should go to
Mike,
underscore geek out
Mike-
underscore ID and find that ID.
one more time, Jim.
Don't you put underscore geek outs underscore ID and then look for that ID?
Outs underscore ID. All right.
Is
Let's
that,
see.
Well, it would be geek out, not geek outs.
oh.
Right.
There it is. Mike, you found your error, didn't you?
Yeah, I sent the updated one.
Ah, okay. I didn't see. Oh, yeah, there it is. I was wondering what the stars were at first. I'm like, why are there stars there? And I see what you're now. You're updating it. Yep. Yeah, that was one of the other things I've seen people doing multiple, like doing geek outs. And again, remember, this is the fields inside approval. And so approvals. So again, how you map this, we go to developer, we find this field, approvals. So we look for this field first. So we go to approvals, that is an approve object type. So anything under the other underscore now has to be a field inside of approve. So then we pull up the approve entity. We say, okay, well, where is the next field we need? Well, we need the geek out field, which is geek out, not geek outs. So we do geek out. Geek out refers to the geek out entity. So then we can pull in the geek out entity and give it a field to search by. And then here we want the ID. So we put the ID field. Last thing we do. ID. That is your method. So we're going to find all developers by approvals, that field, geek out ID. Again, just to make sure this is clear, we only do this in a bidirectional system. If though we wanted to still do this, and let's say we didn't have this bidirectional system, we have two locations that we can pull developers from. Oh, wait a minute, actually, no, before I do that, I don't want to do that today because I haven't actually tested it. The trick is I need to do, can I do a find all developers here? And that's the thing I can't remember if I can actually do. Find all of a different item that's not in the same repository. Can I actually pull a child entity out of an entity? So in the developer repository, if I have the approvals here, can I actually do a list of, let's say, for example, I have the languages, that's it, right? Where are they? There it is. Oh, I'm in geek out. That's why I'm not looking at making sense. I have the languages here. Am I able to do a list of languages? Is that something I can do? I don't think it is. I haven't been able to find any notes in the documentation yet that lets me say I can do this. So I'm still researching this specific item. So this is where if we wanted to do something like this, this hints to us that it's now bidirectional. If we wanted this feature here, until I can find the way to do it through another direction. I don't know if I can yet. So that is one thing I'm going to be able to, I'm going to make sure is very clear. What I can do though, is I can do this still. So, well, no, I can't do this. Right? Yeah.
So when you asked where we should be doing this, either in the geek out or the developer, would the geek out be better because we can get that, because we have access to that table, access to approval geek out ID?
Again, kind of, but again, I can't, I'm not aware if a repository can return a different data type than what it's built out of, since it's built out of developer.
Okay.
And that's something I'm still digging through the JPA documentation. So that's actually why I already had it. I already had this open. Oop, not that. That, yeah. Well, not this one. Where was it? I had it. I pulled it over here. Where did I put it? Good stuff. I actually already had this open because I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to pull a child object from the parent repository. So a referenced or a nested item, so a joined item. So that's what I'm kind of looking into right now to see if that's something I can and can't do. So like these are the return types. So this is something I'm looking into to see what I can do with it. So.
Oh, there's the future. Oh my goodness.
What?
This future.
I don't know what you're talking about. What future?
Just go up, if you go to F, there's a thing called future.
Oh.
And this thing expects something. It's like it expects data, but it's going to be sitting there waiting for it until something happens because it may or may not get it. But it's like it's pretty cool. It's a
data that's not there yet. Got it. Okay. Yeah, the problem is it's always about T, and I believe that T is the entity. So I haven't been able to confirm. Can I get something that is not the entity? That is not the T that was the repository type. So that's something I'm still researching right now. If I figure it out, we will do another lesson on it. So just something I'm trying to find out if I can do, because it'd be nice to be able to do it. I don't want to have to create the two-directional system all the time for a single route. So
isn't T considered like a wildcard when you start doing these?
it is, but again, they put that here because it doesn't know
for a
what
type.
data type we're using. Right.
Yeah.
So
right.
iterator T is iterator developer under the developer repository. So T is just developer. And one way they could have identified is by doing T1 or TX, meaning that it's any item.
Oh, okay.
I would have liked if they did T as like T entity, but that's kind of me being like, you should be more specific, but they don't care.
Yeah.
Anything for me? Anything important? No. Okay, good. Okay, my Slack was going off, so I want to make sure there's nothing I need to take a look at. Anyway, good. So that is something I'm still currently looking into. If I can find out that yes, we can return a different data type here, then we can use the single directional connections to still do this. We would, yes, but yes, as Jim said, we would most likely do this from the geek out or the approval repository, not from the developer repository. Again, the developer entity does not know that the connection exists. This is why we mean by one directional. So approval has a bidirectional with, okay, I just hit space. What was I saying? Yeah, approvals has a bidirectional relationship with the geek out system. So geek out and approval can do the two things to each other. Approvals can find all the geek outs by a certain geek out ID. You can also find all the developers by a developer ID. And the geek outs can do what it does because it knows that the approval entity exists because it has a connection to it. The developer entity did not know that our approvals existed because we did a one directional system. So if we want this route, we have to make it two directional. This is not really that important of a route, really. Seeing all the developers that like this specific geek out, we'll comment it out for now because I still want this to be one directional from developers to the geek outs because I don't want that list included. Of course, I could always just do a ignore the field altogether and don't send it down. So that way developer knows that the connection is there and can still pull it. So we can do this route, but it wouldn't show it whenever we pull a developer. Make sense?
Yeah.
Are we understanding how complex the configurations in websites can be, right? We can see how many ways we can customize how the data is represented, how we can connect to it, how we reference it. Are we starting to see that?
Mhm.
It's a little daunting, I'm sure, right?
Some of
Do
the
you
stuff
need to
that-
know all these different ways of setting these things up?
But some of the stuff you're doing right here, where we're trying to do this, some of the stuff can be taken care of the front end, right? Because it's just gonna be just
Yeah.
displaying data versus having the back end.
Oh, 100%.
Hmm.
My main thing for you guys to do, of course, is to just avoid that nested issue that we ran into earlier. As long as you do that, you can send in your beginner systems, send down all the data. Don't worry about hiding so much. The main thing is just hiding those nested items. That's the only thing that I really care about you guys hiding in the beginning. You can make changes later once it works. You can secure data as it works. My main goal for this really, and some of this stuff is just to showcase that and let you know that that is a concept to be aware of and to consider. The data should be hidden. I want to make sure that that concept of I should eventually hide this, that you want to be able to discuss that in the view that the data is all being sent down, but there's I have an update plan to kind of hide some of this data. Showing that you have this awareness that not all data should go is a good starting point. That makes sense?
Mhm.
I want to make sure that when you go to the interview, you're at least aware that not all data should go. That not all data needs to go to the front end, that not all data should be returned on a poll. That makes sense? Am I expecting you guys to perfect the system today? No. But I want to give you enough building blocks so that if you attempt some of this, you can at least do something with your final project to really clean it up as you go through. If you think of certain things like, oh, I definitely don't want to include this. And part of this is definitely there to make sure that when we go to the next stage, next week, when we start doing user accounts, it'll all make sense. So we're probably going to do a little more of this. We might even redo it, or I'm even trying to come up with a second version of this multi-directional thing so you can see this again. I might want to try to do this one more time with you guys because we only have one more day before you guys go away for 2 class days. So I don't really want to try to get into security stuff tomorrow. So I want to save the user accounts to next week, JPA security next week. We might discuss it a little bit tomorrow, but yeah, I'm not going to start JPA security tomorrow. we might do just some rehashing of this. And really what we might do is just some help with you guys with the homework for this. I'm going to go through, we might do an extra long homework time where I can come in, take a look at what you guys are coding, get you guys help on your expressing an app. So that way you have a nice functional app for the weekend that you can work on and start setting up. And again, starting today, you could even start setting up your home project. What we will do tomorrow is I will introduce you to the other package we're going to bring in, the JPA security package that we're going to bring, the dependency that we're going to be bringing in, so we can start bringing in JPA security elements. So that's going to be tomorrow. Any other questions about this stuff?
I just want to point out, yes, it's good to hide, like Cliff said, just to hide stuff, because, you know, imagine if you're in a bank, if you're working in a bank and you have to look at the JSON data, it could be like miles long of all the data that's being pulled in. You don't want to sit like 5-10 minutes looking through all that data just to find only 2 pieces of data points that you only might need out of it for your project. So, you know, things just get complicated in the long run. So you always want to minimize your list so it'd be easy to find the data quickly and access it quickly and understand it quickly, a little bit easier.
Again, my goal is again to teach and inform you guys of the thinking points and the things that should be on your mind as you build these projects, and making you aware of how you can improve your projects once you finish them as the minimal. So once you get the minimal working, I want to make sure you have enough items in your mind to be like, well, what can I do to improve on this? And this is one thing you can do to improve. Reduce your bandwidth, reduce how much data you're sending down, how much data you're bringing up, improve your validation systems, improve the security of your system, making sure that people can't just send a bunch of bad requests and that they'll crash your system. Make it crash proof later on. So in the beginning, if it crashes because someone sent bad data, who cares? You're testing it. It's not open to the public. So it doesn't care if it crashes if bad data is sent, because you're not going to get bad data. You're filling out the data. And even if you did, you'll reboot it. But yeah, before you put it on the public, you want to then update it, make sure that bad data won't crash the system. It won't work, it won't be accepted, but at least it'll catch it, say, hey, this is bad, and then keep chugging along. That's the key item there. So those are some of the other key items I'm trying to introduce you guys with these classes, is just how can you improve your program once it works by default? And again, the big key item, part of this, what I didn't want to get into right away, but part of it we had to get into more now because of the nested thing that Java does with its objects. The fact that it nests its objects and will do that infinite nesting kind of pushed us to do this earlier. But it works because now you guys have, again, other than the authentication system, you can start building a full stack API right now. You have everything you need. You have the relationships that are needed, the standard relationships. You have the entities, the routes, the controllers, and we're starting to dig deeper into these custom searchable items that you can really play around with. So you pretty much have what you need to start building at least an API. One of the other things we're going to do as we get back is also how to reach out to another external API, how Java can ping another external API to pull data, because you guys shouldn't be doing all the data work, right? You can work with other systems, and especially if you decide that your final project wants to be a microservice architecture, you have multiple servers doing different things, they need to be able to communicate with each other. So Java needs to be able to communicate with Java. Okay, we'll be doing that after the break. So that's it for today, because it's already 9:15. So homework for today and tomorrow. And again, during tomorrow's class, we're probably going to be doing a lot of that, help you guys out with that. Any problems you run into is your customer rental vehicle connection. So let's think about this for 1 second. Which one of these might be bidirectional and which one might be one directional? Are they both bidirectional with an ignore that I just showed that concept in my system? So are we ever going to want to list all the rentals a customer did?
Yes.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to want all the rentals that a customer did to appear when we pull the customer record?
Oh, no.
No.
So that would be a one directional ignored.
Right.
On the customer side, there. On the vehicle side, do we want to see all the rentals that a vehicle has had on it?
It would be nice, but I guess we don't have to.
Or like a count would be bad.
Mhm.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, that could be, this one probably could be the one directional. If you want to do that, if you want to practice that, this could also be a one directional ignore, where
Mhm.
vehicle has the connection, but it's a JSON ignore. So that way you could at least run a get all rentals, or sorry, get all customers by a vehicle.
Mhm.
But again, this one's gonna be a little bit different because you're gonna want to probably create some rental routes because you actually have other data in there. So you actually might create in your system, you might actually have a rental repository and a rental controller actually. So you might actually have a rental controller. You'll definitely have the rental repository. I meant to say that. That was a definite. But you might need
See all
some,
rentals?
what's that?
You want to see all rentals. wouldn't you?
Right, exactly. So you might actually have a rental repository, rental controller in yours. And actually, I'm going to say, yes, you will have a rental controller. I'll give you that. Because you're going to have additional data behind the rental, not just what the which customers rented a vehicle and which vehicles did a customer rent. So, sound good?
Mhm.
So start that off. Like I said, tomorrow you'll get the 1 hour on your own, and we'll also be able to kind of do another maybe half an hour to an hour where I'll jump in, I'll grab some of the TAs, or I'll see where everyone is and kind of maybe I'll pull some TAs and maybe also pull some people that are just I see figured this out during tomorrow's first hour, and have you guys be lined up as the helpers. So that way, TAs, if this is something you're still kind of struggling with or trying to understand, you don't have to panic about, I don't know if I'll be able to help because I'm still trying to figure this out. So this can be a little, this is not normal stuff. So this is definitely different from what we did in console stuff. So not as we change to completely different topics, people can get it differently.
Mhm.
Have at it. If you got any problems, post it on Slack. I'll try to get this video up as soon as I can. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
And post
Night.
it,
What's that?
post the code.
Oh, right.
And any hackathon news?
I told you guys I'm gonna call or message Arnell as soon as we finish class. Tell him we need to figure something out because you guys have like 3 days left in your open shifts, but we have to reboot them. So, and not to mention the break. So.
Night, everyone.
How much time do you have left, Jim?
Huh?
On your open shift, how much time do you have left?
How much time do we have left?
Jim said 3.
3 days? Oh.
Yep.
I think mine's like 2 or 1. Because I got the 3-day message, I think yesterday or 2 days ago.
Oh, yeah, I got the 3-day, yeah, yesterday I got like 3 days. So it's gonna die on me.
Dang.
It's going
Yeah,
to
I'm just gonna make a
expire.
new account.
Yeah, I'll ping Arnell about that. And yeah, if you guys want to start setting up a new account just in case, go ahead. But
You won't be able to set one up until it expires out.
oh, you mean
I
you
can
mean a
just
new
use a separate
sandbox
email.
environment? You mean a new sandbox environment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so you can create another sandbox environment. That's cool. Okay, that's good to know.
yeah, it just says that it'll be expired and you lose everything, but then the next day or whatever, you could create a new one, start sandbox over again, and off you go, off to running again.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Keep me posted on that. Let me know if anything goes wrong with it, of course. But yeah, I'll try. I'm gonna message Arnell as soon as we get off the off of this
Mm.
and kill that.